Mm-hmm. New technologies to sort of begin.
Absolutely. Witches, right? And we have Banquo who was saying some funny things to them, realizing, like, even though they're standing right in front of him, he's talking about them kind of in the third person as though they're not there. And then they shush him. We talked about the beards, how they're human but not quite human. They're women but not quite women. And then we get these three hails. His current, his imminent title, and then supposedly a future title here. We have Banquo comment that Macbeth looks shocked. He looks pale. He doesn't look as though he should. Something that seemed to have been good news, or sounds good, is making him uncomfortable, or making him look startled in some way. So, that's where we're at. Okay, so he asks if they're fantastical, if they're magical, mystical, imaginary in some way. And what does he mean by, or that which outwardly you show?
Exactly what you look like.
Yeah, are you what you appear to be? Banquo's the one with all the questions here, man. He's just like, trying to make sense of it. What is this? What are you? Are you what you seem to be? My noble partner, you greet with present grace. So present grace would be that current title. The great prediction of noble having, so the imminent title. That's the Thane of Cawdor. I think that's an I. The imminent title, and a royal hope. This is the future title of kingship. So you suggest that you predict that he's going to have another title, and you predict that he has the potential to be the king. And you've put him in sort of a trance. He seems rapt with all. Rapt comes from the word enraptured. Enraptured is much like a trance, right? Just lost in your own thoughts, lost in your own ideas, imaginings, and so that's what he's saying. Like, you just put Macbeth over there in a stupor. He's like all in his head, doesn't even realize what's going on, and then he says, but you don't say anything to me. Rude. Come on now. If you are able to tell the future, what's going to happen and what's not, then tell me mine. Tell my future. Okay, there's something kind of reminiscent of a schoolboy that's like, ooh, cool trick, do me next. Right? Like, what about me? I want one. Come on. And he adds some extra stuff in there, right? Like, I'm not begging you. I'm not desperate. Right? I'm not sitting here like, what's going to happen? Oh, all of my life depends on your foretellings. But neither is he afraid of the good or the bad that they might tell him. What does that tell you about Banquo, that he's not afraid of the good or bad that they might tell him?
He feels confident about his future.
Absolutely. He feels pretty secure. Like, he's interested and intrigued, but he's not desperate. Maybe he doesn't put a lot of stock in what they say. He sees it as like a cool trick, but he's not going to go out and live his life by what they tell him, right? So good or bad, I'm not going to like change everything because you tell me something bad. Neither am I going to do it if you tell me something good. I'm not going to like hang my whole life on what it is that comes out of your mouth right now. Okay? So yeah, he wants it, but he's not invested in what the witches have to say. Not really. Doesn't care. And so they speak to him, right? So he asks them, and they do. Go ahead, witches.
Hail.
Is our second witch not here? Hail.
Hail. Lesser than Macbeth and greater.
Nate, were you reading for my second witch? You were third? Oh, you were reading. Okay. So, can you read my second witch today? Because my third witch is back.
Not so happy, yet much happier.
Thou shalt take me, so thou is it spoken?
Yeah.
So all know that and
Faintest than Macbeth all hail.
stay the perfect speakers, tell me more. My sin of death, I know I am then of fame of Glamis, but how of
Connor.
Cawdor. The Danes of Cawdor lives a prosperous gentleman, and to be king stands not within the prospect of the league, no more that to be Cawdor, stay from whence you owe this stranger intelligence, or why upon this blessed cup you stalk our way with such
Prophetic.
prophetic greed. Speak, I trust.
Okay. So they hail him. He gets 3 hails too. I'm sorry. I don't know why my lines disappeared, but they did. Maybe on yours you have them. So, what they said to Macbeth, was that really confusing? Hail to thee, Thane of Glamis, Thane of Cawdor, thou shalt be king hereafter. Was that really confusing? Not so much. But look at what they say to Banquo. We are coming back to the, what was the word we used? Do you remember for how they talk? It starts with an E. Enigma, a puzzle. Enigmatic. I know. Speech. Enigmatic, we could say puzzling. Speech, we could also say cryptic. All of those are the same kind of thing. So we're coming back to that puzzling speech. Lesser than Macbeth and greater. What? This seems to be what? Yeah. Oxymoron. Like, how could that be? How lesser and greater? Not so happy, yet much happier. In this case, this is kind of like not so fortunate. If we take a second meaning of that word, it makes a little more sense. Right? Yet much happier. Thou shalt get kings, though thou be none. So it doesn't mean he's going to go pick them up at the market or anything like that. Okay? It comes from the word beget. Maybe you've heard begotten.
Shall be kings.
Yeah, his descendants shall be kings. Now let's take a wide view of this for just a second. You remember who this play is for.
Shakespeare.
And we've got King James sitting in the room that this play is being performed for.
And he believes he's a descendant of the real Banquo.
And he is said to be a descendant of the real Banquo. So here we're listening to Banquo have this prediction told for him by witches that he's going to be the ancestor of kings. His descendants will be kings. And in the room sits King James, who is supposed to be a descendant of Banquo. Are you following that line? Are you following that idea all the way there? No? Okay. So we're taking it out of the story for just a second. So here's, let me see. I'll do it this way. Here's our play. We'll pretend there's curtains too. Right? And on the play, we have these 3 witches. You don't have to draw this picture. It's okay, guys. Oh, I could move it though so you could see. You can tell me that. So here they are, and they tell this character Macbeth, here's Banquo, and they tell him that your descendants will be kings. Yeah? Your descendants will be kings. But here we have in the audience, watching this lovely little rendition, is King James. Right here. Watching the play. And he is an ancestor, or a descendant of Banquo. Does that make a little more sense? What I'm trying to say? Yeah? Are you following me? Okay, so if he's sitting there watching that, wouldn't that be a little creepy? Because it kind of makes it like the witches have already told more truth, right? Like they've already told some kind of other prediction because he's sitting there. Right? We could take another perspective of it. So we have King James sitting in the room, who is supposed to be, said to be, as far as they believe, a descendant. Oops, sorry, my letters are getting sloppy here. Of Banquo, of the real life Banquo. But there's also one of those other bits of information, those bits of history that we have, where the real King James, I'm going to do it that way for now, was hailed, on the road to Oxford in real life by 3 witches who called him a descendant of Banquo. I know I ran out of space. There you go. Was greeted, hailed on the road to Oxford by 3 witches who called him a descendant of Banquo. Hopefully you left yourself more room than I did, because I ran out of space. Yeah, so we also have, we have him sitting in the room, right? But we also have this kind of referencing a real life experience that King James had had, where these 3 witches hailed him as a descendant of Banquo. And here we have 3 witches calling Banquo, or telling Banquo that he's going to have descendants who will be kings, right? So it's still referencing King James's actual experience, okay? In this case, maybe validating it in some way. Kind of interesting. All right. We got all that? That was the easy part. So, all hail Macbeth and Banquo. But we can't just leave it there. We have to invert it again. This is an inversion. Oh my gosh, I can't write today. It's an inversion of this. Remember what we said about that they believed witches liked inversions of things, inversions of numbers. And so here we've got an inversion of their speech, right? Not only does the all hail move to the end, but we've also reversed Macbeth and Banquo's orders. So we're flipping things around, because that's just what they keep doing. All right. So Macbeth says to them, "Stay, imperfect speakers, and tell me more." What does this tell you about Macbeth? Is he like, yeah, weirdos, get away from me?
No, he's curious.
He's curious. He's interested. Oof, sorry. What are imperfect speakers? What does he mean by that? not a puzzle. What does imperfect mean? Not perfect. So, not saying things clearly. There's no clear, perfect understanding. They've left bits out in their telling. So they're imperfect speakers. So he's telling them, like, well, hold on, you've left too many holes in the story. Stay and tell me more. In most renditions, we have the witches starting to disappear at this point. And that's why he's saying, and this is indicated in this, right? So like whether there's some versions have them starting to walk away, some have them like becoming kind of hazy. So he's looking for more information. By Sindel's death, I know that I'm Thane of Glamis. So this is who he inherited that title from. Whether it be his dad or just the person who came before him, whatever it was. But how the Thane of Cawdor? The Thane of Cawdor lives. Okay, remember the Thane of Cawdor was the second traitor that Macbeth did not kill. He just subdued him. So he subdued him, and then he, was done, and the rest of this other stuff took place away from him. He does say he's a prosperous gentleman. So this indicates that possibly he didn't know who it was, right? Maybe he knows about him. He knows that he took down a traitor but didn't necessarily know his title. There's a few different theories on this one. So, there you go. Unless he's just trying to bait them for more information, right? So he's not telling how much he knows. He's revealing just enough to see if they'll correct him, maybe. I don't know. And to be king stands not within the prospect of belief. Okay, so he's looking for information. Now, why isn't it on this one? This is a time period where Scotland was not under the rule of what we call primogeniture. And what this means is kingship passing from father to son. They were not under this type of leadership. We talked about this being similar to Beowulf's time period, where, pardon me, thank you, where the worthiest, strongest warrior would be king. Or by the popular vote. And generally, the popular vote was going to be for the strongest warrior. Right? They wanted somebody who could defend them. So, while Macbeth says this is not within the prospect of belief, at the same time, there is some prospect of belief, right? Who was just kicking butt all over the battlefield? Macbeth. Taking down one traitor and then a second traitor and causing the invaders to run, right? He just captured the day. So if they were to have a vote, if something happened to the king and they were to be like, next in line, I think that's going to be this guy. It's going to be Beowulf. See? It's going to be Macbeth. I know. It's going to happen. I'm sorry, guys. All right. So, while he says, this can't really be believed, at the same time, it kind of can. So his big concern here, say from whence you owe this intelligence. Where did you get your information? Explain yourselves. Where's your info from? I'm sorry, let me back up. He's definitely curious, because if there's some kind of validity to it, that's going to change things. Or why? Why did you stop on this wind-swept hill to greet us with this prophecy? Right? So why are you telling me? Why ask why? Somebody gives you a bit of information that might seem like it's for your advantage. Are you going to wonder why they're telling you? In case they have some kind of ulterior motives? Mm-hmm. Right? He's absolutely trying to find out what the motive or purpose is. And then he demands, I charge you, this is a command. Command you to speak. And what do? They obey his command. Yes, Macbeth, of course. No, they vanish. They don't even say anything, they're just like, whoop. And in case you can't see the images, if you're watching on our beautiful stage here, and you can't see the witches disappear, the language has to carry that they vanish like little bubbles in the air. So, as they disappear, go ahead, Banquo.
To earth hath bubbles as the water has, and these are the whither are they vanished.
Into the air, and thus sing woeful unfit, as breathe into the wind, with they have stayed.
Were such things here as we do speak about, or have we even the insane root that takes the reason right from you?
Your children shall be kings,
You shall be king.
and vain upon word to when not so.
To the self-same tune and words, who's here?
Okay. So, he talks about the way that they disappear, vanishing into thin air like bubbles. It kind of is suggestive of like boiling earth, right? That the earth that they just stood on is boiling. Okay, they say that earth has bubbles as the water has. Is that a normal thing? No. Okay, so you're supposed to pick up on this image of the earth acting out of character. Why do we care about the earth acting out of character? Because it suggests, again, the supernatural. And these are of them. Where do they vanish? Into the air. What seemed corporal has melted. Do you know what corporal is? It's a form of corporeal. Are we familiar with that word?
Physical.
Physical form, yeah, having solid or physical form. I just don't want to write physical. I'll run out of room. And it's melted. So they seem to be solid, and they've melted as a breath in the wind. Oh, but would they had stayed. Who is it that says this? Macbeth. I just threw my marker on the floor. Okay? Would they had stayed is like, I wish they'd stayed. Right? Wish they'd stayed. Could have got more information. I had some more questions for them. But they didn't. And notice, so you see Macbeth talking about it, right? But I wish they'd stayed. And then look at Beowulf. Oh my goodness. Look at Banquo's reaction. Were such things here as we do speak about? Did that really happen? Did we really just see that right now? Or did we accidentally get a little hemlock mixed into our food and we're hallucinating? Right? That's what we're talking about. So this is a reference to hemlock. Which causes, guess what? Hallucinations. So he's asking, were they really here? Or were we drugged, right? Takes the reason prisoner, something that causes you to not have control of your mental faculties. So notice Banquo's first move is to just question. He's questioning everything. Did it happen? Was I here? Did we accidentally take something? What's going on? Right? Macbeth is like, oh, I wish they'd say. Right? You see the difference in the responses. Macbeth, very carefully, notice he focuses on Banquo here, not on himself. He's focused on Banquo's prophecies. He's carefully avoiding his own. Right? So he's not like, oh, did you hear what he said about me? Right? He's putting it, oh, your children shall be kings. And Banquo's like, they said you're going to be king. Right? Like, let's put this in a proper order. We're talking about kids and grandkids. They said you are going to be king. And then he gets drawn in. Oh, and Thane of Cawdor too. They also said that, didn't they? Interesting. And that last line, to the self-same tune in words, is really just like, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's about the gist of it. That's what they said. All right. So now we have Ross and Angus come in. And Ross and Angus, where did they just leave? Who sent them? Mm-hmm.
This new title.
Yeah. From King Duncan to present Macbeth with that new title that they took from Cawdor because he was a dirty traitor. So they show up right after that. And Ross, we do have Ross. Where's Ross is not here. Okay. Let's see. Hey, why don't you read Ross for me? You're not anybody yet, right? You want to read Ross for me to fill in for Nico? Okay. So the king has heard all about your victories and your part in the battles. And he's flabbergasted. And he's amazed. We'll use mazed. It's shorter. He's so amazed, in fact, he's not sure where the praise is supposed to go. Right? His wonder is great. Right? So he's received news of your success, and when he reads of your personal role in the fight, his wonders and praises content. He's in awe, and he's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. This is so great. Right? So they're fighting whether he's more in awe or feeling more like he's supposed to shower him with praises, and he's not even sure who the praise is supposed to go to. Right? Macbeth or the king? Why? Why would the king get some of this praise for all of the stuff that Macbeth's done? Who's Macbeth fighting on behalf of? The king. So that makes him an emissary or some such word of the king. He's fighting on his behalf. Somebody who is capable of commanding that kind of loyalty, that someone would fight that intensely for them, suggests that the honor would go to the king for being such a great king that someone would fight like that for him. Okay? But there's also the personal honor that's due Macbeth. So he's like, I don't even know who gets more honor in this. Right? Like, that you would fight that way for me suggests that must be pretty amazing. But, okay, so this is where he's conflicted about where the praise is supposed to go. Wonder is great, and he what praise is due to Macbeth? And what the king? And silence with that. So much that it's made him quiet. Like he's quiet in this revelry. Okay? And viewing over the self-same day. Like the same day. Look at all of these things. He finds you in the stout Norwegian ranks. So let's pretend this is Norway, and here's Macbeth fighting it up right in the midst of them. Okay, now this kind of has a double image. So there's one on one side that he just like fought his way in. Into the middle of the enemy. But then there's this other image or perception of him being among them as a traitor. He finds you over on the enemy lines. Okay, so does Ross mean this second one? Likely not. Does the audience, is the audience intended to see the both ways that can be taken? Yes. Okay, so it's suggestive of this kind of treachery. Nothing afeared of what thyself didst make strange images of death. Okay, so these strange images of death, he's not afraid of, nothing afraid of what himself did make. So we're talking about the carnage and death. Causing so much death, all of these bodies lying about, and you're not even afraid of just that in front of you. Okay, that's what these strange images of death are. As thick as tail can post with post, and every one did bear thy praises in his kingdom's great defense. So we just keep getting more letters. Each letter has more story, more tales of his victory. Macbeth's defense of the kingdom. And poured them down before him. This image is almost like an offering. Right? Like we're offering all of this service before the king. Oops, sorry, I can't see that. All right. Okay, you do not have any homework. Work on that essay. Have a good day.